Do you want a way to manage the collection of remote controls that you have? Do you want a way to control your 3D printer with a Raspberry Pi? Looking for a way to print something practical with your 3D printer? Well, stay tuned and I'm going to show you how to do this. Welcome to another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter, your home for all things relating to smart home technology. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to manage your collection of remote controls using a 3D printer. Hi, I'm Ron Nutter and we're going to be working on this together. This content is also available as an Amazon Flash Briefing or podcast. Please go to techbiteswithronnutter.com for more information. For any items mentioned in this episode, there are affiliate links in the description. If you click on these links, I will get a small commission, but that won't affect the price you pay for the item. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please click on subscribe now and enable notifications. If this video helps you or provides value, please click on that like button, thumbs up. Now, here's what we're going to be talking about in this video, about how to manage your 3D printer. First, we got to find some way to deal with all the remotes you're collecting like me. We're going to talk about the required items, and then we'll actually go through creating the remote Caddy. Trust me, if this is one of the first things you do with that 3D printer that you may have just gotten or think about getting, it will be one of the most fun things you're probably going to do. Well, if you're like me, you probably have more than one remote. I quit counting the number of remotes I've got between the soundbar and the streaming receivers and the television. And at some point you want to yell, stop the insanity. Well, we've got a way to help make it a little more manageable. And this is something that you saw in the kind of my introductory video on why you need to have a 3D printer in your smart home. And this is just one of the things you can do. This is called a remote Caddy, or you can call it a remote holder. This is just one of several that are out there. This is just the one that I happen to go on to. There are, you can do it any color you want to. Again, just a matter of loading the filament. And it's very straightforward to do. And it's something that if this is one of your first projects, this will be something that will serve you very well. Again, there's this shape, there's square shapes, you can even go design your own once you get comfortable enough with working with the 3D printers. Well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I'll give you several pictures, so we ought to be good for several chapters of a book. We'll switch over here to my presentation, and this is kind of the workflow that you're going to be looking at. First, you're going to have the 3D printer, but you've got to get the project onto there somehow. What you would do is you'll take your laptop and you'll run some sort of slicing program called Cura, or there's other names out there. That's just the one that I happen to come across. You'll copy that to an SD card, and then you'll plug that into the printer and get the job started from there. But wait, there's more. And I think you'll really like this. And remember in the previous video where I talked to you about how to do this with a Raspberry Pi? Well, guess what? There is. So if we change the SD card out to a Raspberry Pi, we connect the Raspberry Pi to the printer over a USB port. In the case of my BQB1, I just go to the USB Type A port on the side, and I've got links to all the stuff that I'm using to get this up and running. So you've got two ways of getting the job to the printer. You can either take the slicing program you're using and still save it off to a file locally, and then using the interface, the web interface on the Raspberry Pi, we're using something called OctoPrint. Then you've got another way to get it up there, and you don't have to go near the printer. But that's not even the best of it. So what we're going to do is take you to the next step. This is one of the benefits of OctoPrint, and trust me, there's a lot of benefits. Well, guess what? If we plug a webcam into it, you can now watch the printer or check on it, so that if you're like me, where I've had to move the printer to elsewhere in the house because it wasn't real convenient where initially I had it, well, now you can watch things as it progresses. You can even take it further than that. You can add a plug-in to OctoPrint that will stop the printer or pause it if it senses that the filament's broke. And it's not really, while it might be able to tell it electrically within the printer because of your filament sensor that's there. If it sees something visually that's not right, it can stop it. It can alert you when a job's done. There's, you name the plugin, and there's a way to do it. And I'm even going to show you how you can get a time lapse as to what's going on. Now, that way you can show your friends, hey, this is what it takes to do it. Or if you just remember how it should look once a project's successfully completed, or if there's a problem, you can build your own video archive with this. Now, one of the things you're going to have, or at this point, I'm assuming you've already got or will be getting your 3D printer, that you may or may not be using a Raspberry Pi. So there's several things to do here, but we've got to have something to print. So I use Thingiverse quite a bit, and this is the project that I am going to be using today. And if you get an account on there, which doesn't cost you anything, you can collect things that maybe you don't want to print today, but have them by different categories. So if a birthday comes up, or you name the situation, that you may already have something on hand. The next step is to download something called an STL file. And this is the file format that you're going to have for Cura or whatever your slicing program is. Get that downloaded, and then we can go on to the next step. Well, now we've switched over to Ultimaker Cura. It's been known by Cura for so long, but you can call it whatever you want to. All you have to do to get this up and running is create a profile for your print. And don't let that scare you, because folks, very basic information. You just need to let it know the size of the print area, length, width, and height that you're able to do. And that's pretty much all that you've got to do within Cura. But if you select the profile that's built in, a lot of that's entered for you. And there's some other information that we'll have to cover. I'm going to gloss over quite a bit because I don't want to get you overwhelmed if you're thinking about this and are afraid you might be biting off more than you can chew. So what we will do here is we'll file, open a file, and this is where I've got the remote holder. Now, if you wanted to start with just here, you could, but there's a few things we want to go adjust. So I'm going to get my ugly mug out of the way here, and we'll first click on super quality. Now, I've gone and normally what you would do is you'd see this coming up. Well, I've gone into custom because that's normally the world I live in. As it just some of the settings you can get to a little bit easier. So we'll enable ironing, and that's by default. I've got that set up. And what that does on the last level of what's being printed, it smooths out, it kind of warms it up a little bit and kind of smooths out, so it doesn't look as liney. You'll know more what that means when you start using a printer. That it makes it just look a little bit nicer. The other thing we'll want to go do is we'll go into temp. It's remembered that I normally keep it at 190. You'll need to check this on all your filaments that you use because different filament have different ranges. And I normally start out on the low end, and there are some temperature gauges that I want to take a look at that will, you print them using the filament that you're working with, and that will help you see where you may need to make some changes. So we've got this all set to go. So I can just clear that off by going up there, and then we'll click on slice. Now I do have a plugin on Cura enabled so that once you've done through the slicing of the model, then you can go ahead and send it straight to OctoPrint. And it takes it just a little bit of time here, nothing of any substance. Of course, the faster you want it to go, as long as it's going to take. Now, at this point, see, this is telling you 1 day, 3 hours, 41 minutes, and that's a rough approximation. It may come in under that, and it may come in a little bit over that. So I've got that set to go to OctoPrint. Then all I gotta do is click. It will contact OctoPrint, upload it to the device, and then if you've told it to, it will go ahead and start printing. What I normally will do is I'll go here to save a file and then save it locally. So we'll save the G-code, and I've already been working with it earlier, so it's going to say that it's already saved. Okay, we've got that done. Now, what you also want to go through and do is click on File, Save Project. Now, how this differs from just saving the G-code file locally is this handles all of the different and everything that you've done with it. So if you want to go back and change just one thing, you don't have to open up the STL file, try to remember everything that you've done, and hope you got it right. So we'll click on save, and then you can just go when you go back into Cura the next time, then you can pull that up and it will reference that. So it takes it, about 30 seconds or so to do, but that's nothing outrageous. And this way it just helps you with all the settings that it's going to write down. And that's all set to go. So at this point, once we're ready to go, then we can move forward and we can click print with OctoPrint, and then we'll click on it again. See, at this point, we've already got a job running. So I'll get that job cleared, and then we'll be able to go on. But basically, well, okay, it's going to queue the job, so that's fine. But I'll go ahead and clear it so you can see what it should look the first time. Because as we're going through the process, then it's going to upload the job to OctoPrint, save it to the local SD card, fire off the printing, and then what we'll be able to go through and do, as you're seeing the different screens that are coming out now, we can actually watch the webcam as it's recording what's going on. I've got it set in slice mode so that as it goes up each level of what it's printing, then it records it at that point, and with the length of time it's going to take to print the remote caddy, you should have a nice little, probably somewhere between 15 to 30 second clip, maybe a little bit longer. I'm not sure how this one's going to react, and that way you can see it as it's building along. And this is just with the stock OctoPrint. There are all sorts of plugins. There's one called Timelapse that you can get into that really, well, actually what it pulls the print head out of the way to be able to give you an unfettered view, and it just looks like the model is just rising up out of nowhere to get printed. So we'll revisit this in a little bit and let you see the progress and how it's moving, because it is going to take a little bit of time. Well, at this point, job's been running for a couple of hours now, and this is how you can monitor it within Cura. So you can verify what the temperature is of both the build plate, or the print bed as I've been calling it, and the extruder or the print head. So it's moving right along, and we can override some things if we need to. You can go directly to OctoPrint, and we've already got it open, but it should come back up here, and bless its little heart, it does exactly that. So you can see file it's working on, and this is an indication that I watch on the resend ratio to see if there's a problem. Either maybe the Raspberry Pi is overloaded, possibly a bad cable problem, because USB can be a little bit touchy. So like I said, it's been running for about an hour and a half. It's not even to the first percent. And then we can go back to control here. So we'll see just the image that we saw earlier. If we go into G-code viewer, yes, we're going to rebuild. It's going to take it just a second here to catch up, because it's actually going to have to wait until it gets into the next layer before it's going to show it to us. But you can see it humming right along with sending the commands out to the printer. Okay, there we go. Now it's loading. You just had to get to a point in the job to where it could send the information over. So we'll see where it stands at this point. Literally, showing you the crosshatches that are coming up now. And if you see, it's pretty much in mirroring with what is going on. And now we can see where the time lapse stands at this point. If we click on time lapse, and since it has not rendered it at this point, because the job is just barely an hour and a half old, if we go to unrendered, then we can see it's already captured 7 frames, and that will continue to grow as time goes on. And then you'll get to see it as it develops and gets past the foundation layers and builds up the sides from what you saw of the one that I'd already printed. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see videos on the screen that are similar to the one that you've just watched, or other content that YouTube thinks you might be interested in. If this video helps you or provides value, please click on that like button, thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please click on subscribe now and enable notifications. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.